Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Now, this is different from our normal tea inspiration sessions. First of all, I'm sorry about the shaky start, but more importantly, it's about inspiration, but in a slightly different way. We've called it a cup of kindness because, particularly in these times where we're all challenged, it's important for us, whether it's an individual, a business, whether it's tea or anything else, that there is a heart and a soul to the business and that it has that aspect of kindness. And so I'm joined today by one of my colleagues. Tamindri is the general manager of the MJF Charitable Foundation. And what Tamindri is going to explain to you, and Tamindri, if you can move on to the next slide where we can have a look at a brief introduction to her background. What Tamindri is going to explain to us is the fact that in making that tea inspiration and in making our teas a cup of kindness, there is a lot that goes behind it, but we're explaining it not to tell you, look, we're doing a great job. We're explaining it to show you what individuals, what brands, what businesses of any sort can do to be able to serve their community. And we have learned so much in the past 18 months, whether it is about teletherapy to try to help children who have different ability and are unable to come into our centers, or whether it's about beekeeping to promote biodiversity. There's a lot we have learned. And today we would like to share with you the humanitarian side of what we've learned. And I hope it's a blessing on you. But so this is Tamindri, and we have a question to start with. We have a question. Have you ever heard of the MJF Foundation? MJF stands for Merrill J. Fernando, and that's my father. I think most of you should know that. So I've got a few questions. Is it the first time? Did you hear about it? Or not really? But let us know, and we'd love to know what you think. So with that, I'm going to pass on to Tamindri. She's going to talk you through a few interesting projects, and our hope is not that this is going to show you what we are doing. Of course, that's important to an extent, but more than that, that it inspires you to make your own inspiration and chart your own path of purpose. Tamindri, over to you.
Hi, thank you, Dilhan. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to all of you. I just wanted to say a quick hello. I'm Tamindri, as Dilhan has given an introduction, but with me are a number of colleagues, and I've attached the photograph of the last team photo we took before the pandemic, which was in January of 2020. That's just a little bit of the team, but within the foundation, we have about 55 full-time staff, and then others, about 150 others who work with us on an ongoing basis. You don't get to see a lot of us because a lot of what we do is with the communities we work with, and that is the more important thing. So I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to speak on behalf of my colleagues as well as myself. A little bit about me. I have a very mixed background. I've spent the last 20 years running around in different parts of the world, and for the last 5 years, I've been working with the foundation and working with this amazing team of people who really embody kindness, because it's not about our skill set, it's not about our backgrounds, it's not about our interests. It's about the passion and the love they bring to the job every day. That's what motivates me, and that's what I hope will also motivate you in the next few minutes as we continue this conversation. A lot of organizations, a lot of private sector companies work in what's called corporate social responsibility. Dilmah too has something that is called Business is a Matter of Human Service, and it sounds very good. But one of the things I wanted to tell you is about why it's different. Now, it doesn't make sense for me to say that because I work here, but I hope in the next few minutes that you will understand why it is different. Most corporates will write a check or will partner with other organizations, but the foundation is a registered non-governmental organization in Sri Lanka. We collaborate with others. We are an entity that directly implements, which is very different from a lot of what a lot of organizations do. We are also not based around just the Dilmah factory, which is in Colombo, right? Or in the plantations. We work in 43 plantations across Sri Lanka. And what that means is the work that we do isn't restricted to just benefit the community around, because it is very important for communities around private sector and corporate areas to thrive. But what has happened over the last 20 plus years, next for 2022, it will be 20 years from the start of the foundation. We've worked across areas that need the most. If you compare Sri Lanka's poorest areas or areas that are within its poverty index with what you see on this map, you will see that we work in 14 locations currently. We have worked in others in the past, but we work in those areas because they're the areas that need the greatest support. And that itself is a very different way of working, because we work in very remote parts. If you look in the middle of the country, in Monoragala, in Hambantota, in Ampara, in Kalkuda, they're areas that are war-torn, tsunami affected, and for numbers of years, it's been there are still issues. And because of that, we continue to focus on that. The largest center is in Moratuwa, which is an urban setting, and some of you on this call may have visited it during your visits. But for those of you who haven't, it is very much an urban setting with a lot of social issues, because there are problems. The photograph you see on the right is actually the largest center, which is in Kalkuda on the eastern side or part of Sri Lanka. And what you see is what we call our vocational training area. We have green roofs. It's an entirely sustainable facility. It replenishes and treats. It has its own water waste treatment plant. It has green roofs to reduce the temperatures, because temperatures are very stark. As you can see, the landscape is very barren. And so what we really try to do is introduce new facets and new concepts and bring in issues of sustainability into the lives of the communities that we work in. So what do we do? And there are a range of things. Any person who works in development, anyone who knows that there are lots of issues that we need to work on, right? So initially, I wanted to start with the plantations, because that is the very heart of what we do as the foundation. It is where we had the start, and we work on a number of initiatives. We started working in child development centers, yes, so that children can have an early start. They have a place to go to, that they are looked after. We give them nutrition so that they grow up well. And then we've also invested in infrastructure, in housing, in toilets, in sanitation, in awareness programs. But also beyond that, we've worked with giving people scholarships. Just to give you a little bit of numbers so you understand what we work with about 2,000 children under the age of 5 every single day. And with that, we've been working to not only start with just the age from before they start school, but to give them support as they continue. Anyone who knows about the plantations knows that people don't finish their O-levels. They don't go into higher education. But what we try to do is support them to be upwardly mobile, support them to make sure that they have an opportunity to finish their secondary education, as well as go into university. Beyond that, we've really started another program where we are supporting kids, particularly in the pandemic times, so that they have an opportunity to study. It's sometimes not easy to study at home, so we've opened up spaces that they can study throughout. We also haven't forgotten people who have finished working, who have retired. Part of the programs we have is to make sure that the older population is still engaged, they're still active, that they have vibrant communities and things that they can participate in. And these are all programs which we've commenced as of 2020. So I'm going to move on to the next bunch of work we do, and I hope that you all will learn a little bit more. You'll see a lot of chef's hats in this, and anyone who follows the Facebook page will know that we work with young children and bring them into the field of the culinary arts. But that's not all we do. As we try to work with a plan, every organization, whether it's a private sector or whether it's doing charitable works, needs a plan. And what we've realized is, based on understanding and on assessments, we've tried to work to make sure that we are preparing people in the next 3 years to move beyond the pandemic, to move beyond their skills to move beyond the sort of damage that it has done in terms of society. So what we are working on currently is we work on gender, not just with women, but also with men. In the past few months, we've been working on things like positive fatherhood, positive parenting, but we also help support women be financially independent, whether it's things like debt relief or whether it's making sure that they have additional incomes to look after the households. Because as many of you know or might have realized or seen it on TV, it is women have been very badly hit by the pandemic. And what that means is they have multiple roles, not just working, not just being at home, not just childcare and working with children, and it's across society. And so we've reinvigorated our focus on women and also the roles of parents and fathers. And we've also worked with youth, because some of the first people to lose their jobs in the pandemic were the younger people. And what we are trying to do as part of with the culinary school, as well as with the IT school, IT training that we provide, is to make sure that they are ready not just for today, not just for tomorrow, but the jobs and their lives of the future, so that they have an opportunity to access things and also then increase their income. If you're wondering, if any of you have heard about the Sustainable Development Goals, you would have seen it all over the world. We work to hit and support Sri Lanka with those targets, because as we do that, we are helping meet the needs of individuals as well. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is Velendo, because it was created based on a need. And what Velendo does is we have numbers of people that we have given small grants to, small business grants in the past. We've also found lots of people who've been badly affected, people who were, tourist drivers or tour guides or chefs. A lot of the people who have been impacted are now looking at other ways of supporting themselves. There are also others who have skills which they cannot meet. What we've done is created a little platform called Velendo, and we're working mainly in Moratuwa, which is one of our urban centers, but also in different parts of the world to connect these people to bigger markets, to connect them to customers, so that they will then be able to work harder and also gain more exposure. Youth, I've spoken about, so now I'm going to move on to another very important part of the population that we work with, and that is in terms of children and early childhood development. The MJF Kids program, which started just at the next door or within the factory of Dilma, has expanded into all 14 other centers. It's not just an educational support, but what we try to do is give people life skills, leadership skills, career guidance, make sure that they have the opportunity to meet the needs and also to get the guidance, because education is not what you receive in school. That's school books and school textbooks. But a lot of people that we work with from low-income backgrounds, they never have the opportunity to figure out what they want to do with their lives. They keep looking for sources of income that are quick fixes without realizing that it does damage to them in the long term. So the programs that we do, for example, at the joint venture Cricket Life Foundation that we work with, we look at stopping children from dropping out from school, because Sri Lanka has an immense problem of school dropouts just before and just after the O-level. And what we try to do with CLF as well as the MJF Foundation, MJF Kids, is to channel them into meaningful ways of working. At the same time, we also work on early childhood development, because what we recognize is the first 5 years are essential. Any country, any development index will tell you the nutrition, the health, the education that the children get in the first 5 years is what changes their life and how they respond to life. And part of what we do is make sure that they're given opportunity. Other part of it is that because we have these early childhood development centers in at least 4 of our sites, as well as on the plantations, the mums are able to work. Childcare is scarce, as in many parts of the world. And what that means is giving the children a very safe place to be gives their mums and dads the opportunity to go and earn a living, knowing that their children are safe. So I'm going to move on from here into the next passion project, and this is truly a passion project for the entire team. We work with disability, We are not just a facility that brings in people with disability, we're a facility which trains on disability. And that is very different. Oftentimes, you will have a location, children will come there. But what we do is we have therapists, we have speech and language therapists, occupational therapists, behavioral therapists, people who work with children with disability, as well as special education teachers, that all children with disability, because it's not a focus in Sri Lanka, it's something that's up and coming, and yet a lot of children don't have a safe space to go to. What we do is we've trained the teachers, we've worked with the therapists, and we've worked with international partners to bring in the newest therapies that will help these children recover. We work in early intervention, and we also work in ongoing education support, and we are now moving into working in vocational training. Because oftentimes what happens is children will have the support as they go through their school years, but once they hit 18, they have nothing to do. They have nowhere to go. They're no longer stimulated, and disability is looked at as an illness or an ailment, whereas it's a condition where people can live and also genuinely support. So we have disability centers, centers that work with people with disability in 5 locations across Sri Lanka. And what we do is make sure that we provide services that give them an opportunity to be the best. But we didn't stop there. Earlier, Dilhan spoke to you all a little bit about teletherapy and teleeducation. Particularly with the pandemic, people with disability are very vulnerable because the movement is restricted, and they remain at home, and they're no longer able to access any therapy. An ordinary child with disability in Sri Lanka would be lucky to get therapy every 3 months. The children who come to the centers get therapy twice a week. But what we realized as a result of the first lockdown was that a lot of children regressed in the 1.5 months of that lockdown. So what we did was we then started working first on WhatsApp, then on Zoom, and then also we worked with an IT organization, Millennium IT, a big shout out to them. We worked with them to create an app, because what that does is it gives them online support, either through the website or in terms of an app that they can get teletherapy and teleeducation. Basically, our therapists have one-on-one sessions as well as group sessions with people so that they do not fall behind. And what that does is it makes sure that they're continuously supported, so that they don't regress. Because any reasonable period of time without therapy means that they will not be able to move as much or work as much as possible. So I'm going to go into the last slide that I have in terms of advocacy. I wanted to say a little bit about why we do advocacy. It's very easy to implement the programs that we do, and there is a lot that I haven't been able to speak with you about. On a daily basis before the pandemic, we worked with about 6,000 people every single day. Now we work with about 2,000. And one of the issues that everybody faces is the lack of data. You can only do so much online, particularly with the lower income populations, because they do not have access to sufficient data, right? What we try to do is to make sure that while we are serving the populations that we do, we also speak on their behalf. As a private sector supported organization, both as DILMA as well as the foundation, we work for certain rights. The first that you can think of is for disability. The second is for gender, for women in particular, because of the impact that the pandemic has had. And we also work to support youth and to make sure that their skilling, their skills are upgraded, that their skills are relevant, and that they're able to find jobs as soon as they leave the work, the programs that they are part of. The next slide is just a hodgepodge of everything that we do. The foundation tries to see a problem, address the need, and make a difference. That is also very different from what other corporate-related services would be doing. The reason is because with the centers, we are grounded we work in the communities, and we are there for the long term. What that does is it helps us establish relationships that go beyond a single engagement. And that continuous engagement, that continuous interaction, the continuous conversation is something that we deeply value, because the work that we then do is not just focused on the community, is not just focused on a one-off. What it does is it identifies and helps to try to meet the needs, ongoing needs of the community. As things change, we change along with it. And as we grow together, because once we support a family, what we then do is encourage them to support another. That everybody passes on what they have, and they pass on the experience. Now that we have been working with the communities for about 20 years, what we really found out is that we see families, we see alumni, we see young people who were part of the foundation 10 years ago. They're suddenly back with us, supporting other people to get into the foundation, get into the programs, advocate for them. And they are willing to give back to them as well. So I hope it was a very, very much a nutshell of what the foundation does. I think in some ways it's the tip of the iceberg, but I do hope that you had a brief glimpse. And what I would really request is check out our Facebook page, check out our Instagram page, like us and do follow us and support us, because that's the only way that we ask for your support. Everything else I'll leave to Dilhan and his team to do. Thank you, Dilhan.
Thank you, Tamindri. Okay, we have a question. Cup of kindness. Okay, do you believe? Yeah, cup of kindness. Okay, I think let's move on. I think, Gautam. Great, thank you, everyone, including the person who says, maybe. But the principle of this and why we chose to do this, and you've obviously noticed I'm not in my apron as usual, but it's very much about tea inspiration, because what inspires us as a team, whether the tea team, the environmental team, or whether it is the foundation team, is the fact that we are able to encourage and inspire. So the tea inspiration starts with the tea, of course, continues through the taste, through the goodness, and then also through the purpose, with all three elements similarly. But what we wanted to also share with you is the fact that what we try to do is focus on the impact. So we are designing our programs to ensure that we go into partnership with people. It's too often, and I must say we made this mistake in the past. It's easy to give money and say, hey, look, I hope this helps. In many cases, and we learned it particularly after the Asian tsunami, in many cases it doesn't. And so what our focus is to understand the solutions to poverty at a more complex level, to look to partnering with people, whether it is a war widow, whether it is a child who has different ability, whatever, and to look for the good and what can be done positively with that person. Everyone has the ability to contribute. And so through that partnership, we try to protect the dignity of the beneficiary. So it's not a dependent relationship, but rather it's a partnership. And then that creates an environment that allows us to make sure that that person grows. And that is the best way for anyone to do anything to help another person, to make that person independent. And really, the motivation for this whole session was to be able to share that. Because what we have learned, my father, Dilmah founder Beryl J. Fernando, his philosophy was to make business a matter of human service. And we take it very seriously, because for him, it's something that is as important as the harvesting, tasting, perfecting of fine tea. And so to understand that success is a blessing, and to share that blessing is something that is serious business. And so we learned lots of things along the way. We share whenever we can. And that was the purpose of today. So Tamindri, may I have the next slide, please? I'm sorry, we are a little bit disconnected today because several of our team are in quarantine. And so we've got a replacement group who are helping out. So this is part of the Module 3 badge. So once you complete episodes 7 to 9, you can claim your Module 3 badge. Thank you, Tamindri. And the next, please. So 9th of September, we are back with Peter. We are looking to Brewing Beyond a Cuppa. We're looking at tea gastronomy. We're looking at tea and ingredients that are good for you. So Peter will be coming to us all the way from Queensland in Australia. And then we have Alberto Pizarro coming to us from Barcelona. And that'll be on the 7th of October. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the session. It was different, but it is really important because the times are such that we really need to share this message. How every individual, whether a child or an adult or a business, can contribute to share kindness, because kindness is so important now. So many people are having tough times, whether it is mental anguish or in some other way. So we wanted to share what we've done so that maybe it sparks a few ideas. So we have a few comments. I answered many of them. Sue Saunders, thank you, Sue, for the team and the work that you do. Makoto, how many hours drive from Colombo to the Eastern Center? Makoto, like Tamindri said, we work in the most remote parts of Sri Lanka, and where the Eastern Center is concerned, it can take almost 6 hours. So what we generally do is wake up very early in the morning, 3:30 to 4 when the speed cops are not, speed police are not on duty, and head across. Takes 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours if you do it early in the morning.
But watch out for elephants.
Sorry, yeah, you actually. Oh, and today is World Elephant Day. Happy World Elephant Day. And the other side of the human service, that is Dilmah Conservation. So you saw the humanitarian side. The other side is Dilmah Conservation, that is involved in everything from species conservation, beekeeping, environmental education, arboretum, etc. We will talk about that at a future time. So they're celebrating today, particularly with baby Dilmah, which is our very own baby elephant in the elephant transit home. So Jessica, thank you, Tamindri and Dilhan, for sharing after volunteering in Moratuwa. Thank you. I cannot express how wonderful the work is. Thank you very much. And we have comments from Swaran. Tea is one of the primary foods. Creating food security through tea is a brilliant idea. Thank you. It's very important for us, particularly in the environmental side, when you consider any project, whether it is commercial or whether it is environmental, you have to integrate livelihoods, because today, as we look to migrating our plantations into agroforestry and so on, when you involve the community, and as Tamindri said, working with the community rather than trying to come and impose something on the community is so critical, because that is the key to dignity, and dignity is the key to the success of any project, whether it is environmental or whether it is...
And Swaran, I never got to it, but we actually do quite a bit of work with farmers and in agriculture. We work not only on the estates with the communities, and that's some of the things that we're doing with the older population, because a lot of times they don't, they might not get the food that they were getting before. So both in the plantations as well as in the remote areas, we're working, and not only just working in food security, but working to promote an organic agriculture as well as bringing in technology into agriculture. So we do that. It was just too much of a short time to get to it. If you'd like more information, I'd be happy to give you.
So the information or the projects that Tamindri talks about are all in this book. It's a 135-page, it's a document that is essentially a report, more or less, for my father, for the settlers, just to say what we've been doing with the money that Dilmah earns and contributes to the foundation. But you can have a look at it. It's on issue, and we'll put it out shortly so that you can just have a look at the ebook. It's kind of big to be couriering out to everyone. Thomas, thank you. Yeah, you say thank you for the interesting presentation and great job in this difficult time. This is the time we must encourage each other, and that's why we're keeping on doing it. Makoto, thank you again. Mohan, Doresami, thank you. And Ria, thank you very much. Thank you, Ria, and Mohan again, thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. Stay inspired, stay kind, and have a blessed and wonderful day. Thank you.